Hello and welcome to another edition of the Tigers Down Under. I'm your host Alex, and with me today I have Dan. How are you, Dan?
Look, I'm a bit weary today. Just after a long excursion with work yesterday, but no, I'm in pretty good spirits, really. I think.
Yeah, I think half time of that Stoke game, we could have been staring down the barrel of, I think it would have been something like 4 losses in 5. And so it could have been a very different atmosphere on the podcast at that point, but turned that around. So yeah, looking a bit more up the table than down the table potentially. But look, we'll start with the Ipswich game before we get to all of the fun that was that Stoke game. We're sort of talking before the episode. I mean, the Ipswich game's a tough one to talk about in the sense that it was just there. Like I remember, I think it was at halftime. I saw a comment on Twitter that was basically just like, "Can we just shake hands on a 0-0 and both go home?" Like it just was a very nothing first half. It felt like in that game, and then Ipswich. It's you see it in the Premier League as well when like Man City can just bring superstars off the bench. It's just like Ipswich just casually throw Jaden Philogene on and score some goals, and you go, well, you can't be too unhappy because it's just the nature of a club that has those sorts of resources.
Yeah, look, the first half, as you say, was. No, I'm not sure if dour is necessarily the right word. I think there was plenty of football played, but you know, it wasn't necessarily that exciting. So there wasn't. I think I left. I had to go to work. I missed the second half, but I sort of left going. I'm like, I kind of was optimistic. I thought, well, we've held them out, and they're a team that's that they're sort of bouncing back into form after sort of maybe a bit of a rocky start to the season. We know they've got some big players in their squad, so I was pretty happy to be 0-0 at halftime. Really, I thought the way that we've sort of had some really strong second halves. I think Jakirovic obviously has a bit of a way with words. I think he's had quite a number of rousing sort of second half reactions this season. So I thought, he'll get in there and he'll get him inspired and get him going, and we'll come out and nick it 1-0 or something. But wasn't to be. But I thought it was even so to lose 2-0 against Ipswich, even though I think they were probably below us on the table at the time. They are, one of the relegated Prem teams. They do have, a lot of quality in their squad. And I think 2-0 to Cop, sort of the 2 goals later in the second half, isn't the worst result in the world. I think it's sort of one of those games where, like, you have to lose games in the championship. It just is what it is. And I think what's more
Unless you're
important,
Coventry.
Well, they'll lose. They've lost a game, I'm sure.
At
Least one. What's more important than the loss is the reaction. So
that's right.
I think.
I mean, interestingly, like you say that, like I think losing to Ipswich was actually our first consecutive losses under Jakirovic after the loss at QPR. So maybe a little bit disappointing not to get more of a reaction after that game. But like you say, it's Ipswich.
Yeah, I think you sort of like. I think you sort of temper. There is to go. Yep. The one. It's actually not that bad to be 18 games in and have only lost like consecutive games once.
Yeah.
I think that's a pretty good sort of indication of where the squad is. I think we're flirting with the top 6 all the time. I think we were in it heading into the Ipswich game.
Yeah, I think so.
5th or something, and then that might have been what dropped us out, and then we're just outside. But I think it's a point. Like we're so there or thereabouts, and I think obviously we'll talk about it a bit more soon. But the next little run of games, I think, could be sort of a, like, I know it's still very early, but it's almost becomes sort of make or break period leading into Christmas with where those teams that we're playing are and in relation to us, and what could happen if we did have a sort of a bit of a disastrous downturn in form, where suddenly we could end up 9 points adrift of the top 6, and that becomes a very big sort of gap to bridge. But hopefully it's not that bad. I don't think it'll be that bad. I think we'll still be able to pick up some results, but I think without getting the Ipswich game, realistically, I can handle that loss. I don't feel like it's a devastating loss. It's not really like losing to Sheff Wednesday or Sheff United or
No,
Norwich
that's right.
or.
No, it's or Derby, as someone categorized Derby in that bucket. But anyway, I digress. The only thing I'd add on the goals themselves, I feel like we've seen it a few times this season now where Hughes just misjudges the flight of the ball, and you see him go up for the header and just completely fresh air just basically has misjudged the trajectory of the ball. I'm trying to remember off the top of my head the last time it happened, but it has happened a few times. I want to say, was it Portsmouth as well? I think their second goal. I mean, as much as you say Murphy puts that really good cross in, it just does fall right over Hughes' head onto whatever his name is, his head for them. So
yeah.
And I think there's maybe one or two other occasions as well. So if I was being ultra critical, I'd just say Hughes' positioning for the goals probably a bit disappointing. Giles for the second goal, not stepping up quickly enough. But that one, it's a bit quicker, happens in the flash of an eye, so you can't blame him too much. Just a few things. Which, look, I actually take as a real positive where I go, the goals themselves, and I've seen it said a few times on social media, like, yes, we've conceded 30 goals, which is a ridiculous amount, but it's not as if, like under Volta at the start of his tenure, it felt like those counterattack goals that we saw happen a couple of times, or against Norwich, we lost 4-0 and the backline was just, it's not as if it's a system issue. I don't feel anyway. Like, it doesn't feel like our system is letting us down. It's just for whatever reason, we just seem to have all of these kind of simple individual errors that kind of cost us these goals.
Yeah, I guess which probably explains why I think we've sort of enlisted the help of a set piece specialist or like a consultant to sort of analyze our set piece work and dead ball situations because sort of, as you say, it seems to be primarily in those situations, corners and free kicks around the box that seem to be where we come undone a lot. And in the, if we can tweak those and remove some of those moments and those mistakes, then we'll go a long way to I think, sort of resolving some of those defensive frailties. But I think, as you say, importantly, we're not getting cut wide open by teams every week. It takes sort of something a bit special to really sort of like cut the defense apart. It's just sort of individual moments. And I think, like, you look at, without jumping ahead, but the sort of the coil tackle against Stoke, like, there's as many moments like that where we do something amazing as there is moments where it kind of goes the other way, where we misjudge it, we misjudge the flight of the ball, or we don't step up quick enough, or it's just sort of those moments. And football is a game of moments, so we just need to get control of them a little bit more.
I think it was a Jai in this game. I think it was at 1-0. So we had, in that situation, overcommitted a little bit. And there was the 4 Ipswich players streaming in where you think that's almost a certain goal for them. And a Jai sort of holds his ground and forces Nunes into the shot and blocks the shot effectively. So you think there are situations like that where we are actually quite effectively stopping those counterattacks. Moments of magic did lead to goals. We'll talk about the moment of magic Stoke had against us in just a second, but I'll get your votes for this game first, and then we can talk Stoke.
Hard for this one, isn't it? I actually don't even. I couldn't even, like. I can't give you a vote. I haven't.
That's all right.
I didn't see enough of the game. The first half was so boring. I just didn't consider it at all.
No, that's all good.
The other game.
I'll give votes for this one then. I've probably been a bit critical of Panda recently, but I did think he was probably our best on the ground against Ipswich, kept us in the game at numerous points with a few good saves. So I gave him the 3 votes. JB, I gave the 2 votes. I thought, I would talk about him against Stoke in a second. I actually thought he was quite good against Ipswich in the way that he was breaking up the play and putting, adding to that press up top for us against them. And then Amir, I gave the 1 vote to, because I think when he was taken off, it did coincide with Philogene coming on. So it's a bit hard to judge if it was more him going off or Philogene's impact on coming on. But it did feel as if we lost a bit more control of that midfield when he was off the ground. So I gave him the 1 vote for that. But yeah, we'll talk Stoke, which, you sort of talk about, it's not the losses, it's how you respond to them. And I think this was a really good performance from the team where you go, if you lose that, like I said before, it's 4 losses in 5, you're starting to slip down the table. I think the live table, when we were 1-0 down, at one point we were 12th or 13th, and you go, things can change very quickly with a couple of losses. So to turn it around, get the 3 points was a really, really valuable result for us.
Yeah, I think it really was a game of two halves. I think in that first half I was pretty worried about what the end result was going to be. Almost the opposite of the Ipswich. I was feeling pretty optimistic at halftime at Ipswich. I was feeling pretty pessimistic at halftime of Stoke. Just thought the first half we were just not at the races at all. A couple of changes to lineup. I think like Ndala came in from the start. Who else?
Well, so in terms of the changes, so Egan, Destan, and Crooks came in to start for Joseph, Hughes, and Hajmatovic. Hughes with a bit of a hamstring strain. So he was on the bench, but not really on the bench. But yeah, Ndala up top with Destan and I guess Gelhardt on the other side, Crooks through the middle, JB and Slater as well in that midfield, which, it's an interesting balance in that midfield because I don't quite know if JB works as that deeper midfielder, but then I don't know. Like, I mean, I think it was Baz and a few were saying Crooks played better when he was deeper for us, but I actually prefer Crooks a bit higher up as well. So, I don't know if that midfield had the right balance, which obviously we saw with the way that first half played out.
Yeah, just seemed like we could never really got a foothold in the first half. I think in many respects, we're probably lucky to only be 1-0 down. I think Stoke had a number of really good chances, and the only one they seemed to sort of finish was the most miraculous attempt there was, with Sorba's sort of half volley from the edge of the box or whatever, like just a bit crazy. But then go to half time, big team talk, which pretty much was either pull your finger out or we may as well go home, from the sounds of it.
That. Yeah.
That's the Spark Notes version he gave in the presser afterwards. I think he said
I
think he said something like, "What I say to the players in there is between us, but this is the sort of the general gist of the message was, if you're not going to turn up, we may as well just go home now." A couple of changes at half time, and it was almost the perfect start to the second half with the Ajayi Semi Ajayi goal off the corner.
I had that ruined for me. Like, it happens very rarely for me, but I was checking SofaScore. I think I was looking at the live table because I was like just pessimistically being like, geez, how low are we sinking? And then I saw our score went to 1-1, and I was like, nah, surely not. Like, we're playing so terribly. Surely we don't score here. So it was one of those ones where I'd had it ruined for me, and I'm like, how do we score from this situation? But yeah.
Yeah, look, it was, I think, as much as, maybe the Stoke goal was a little bit miraculous, I think this was in many ways very, very fortunate. I do fully believe that, that Bulumi's onside, that everything like works out in the balance, but I think it was pretty tight. And on another day, the refs, the linesman will flag that, and it'll be so tight that you probably can't really complain that much anyway, but just the way that it all sort of unfolded, and Bulumi just sort of is there and bounces, and it gets sort of a thing, and it's defenders and attackers moving every direction, and it just happens to fall, and Ajayi runs through it, like just a wild piece of play.
And look, like, I'd been critical of Bulumi against Ipswich. I thought coming back from his hamstring, he was looking a bit timid and conservative with the how he was playing, which is fair enough. Like, you've done your hamstring, you're going to be a bit tentative on it for a while, but I thought he was excellent against Stoke.
No, that he'd just come back from his ACL and then done his hamstring.
Yeah.
So, but no, you're right. I think he's been a bit slow, sort of, to return to, I guess.
I think especially when you compare to Miller.
Yeah, well, that's right. Like, Miller sort of came back and within 2 games had a goal, I think. Like, his first start, he got the goal, within a couple of games, and Bulumi was, some moments, but sort of no real consistency in the performance for a little while. But seems to be, I guess he's you know he was in the right positions at the right times. I guess is the best way to put it. Against Stoke, two big moments that led to the two goals. So um, I think that first one, good reaction, sort of to with an intent just to try and make sure it goes back across sort of the goal and give his teammates a chance. The second one, I think, is great. It's a well timed, well placed pass for Gelhardt to
Just about perfect.
just
Like,
yeah.
takes the defender almost completely out of it. Like, the defenders probably should do better, but even then, I say the waiting on that pass, I just think completely takes the defender out of it.
Yeah, I think you sort of go, it is perfectly placed, perfectly weighted, because it's one of those ones where if it's a little bit more central, the defender gets it. If it's a little bit wider, then Gelhardt is a little bit wider and probably doesn't get the shot away that that doesn't get the goal. And we're sitting here going, well, that was such a good chance. It's a shame we didn't finish it. But I think it was a perfectly weighted ball. But in general, I think the second half was way better. And I think it was the sort of the energy that Joseph and Balumi sort of brought when they came on. I think, which is really, I just think of all the chat about Joseph over the last 12 months about how he's not up to standard, he's not good enough, he doesn't do enough, and yet, the game's in the balance, and he's one of the guys that Jurkovic turns to, and he has a huge impact on, like, his work rate. I think is infectious. Like, he's young and he's keen, and he runs hard and he works hard and he does so much off the ball and he tracks back and defends. And I think when you've got, I think it's easy to go, like, I'm tired. But when you look and you've got a guy on a team who is, like a few weeks ago, it was pressing the goalkeeper, 92 minutes into the game, like, those moments are the things that lift you as a player and allow you to keep digging and keep pushing. And so I think his value to the squad, it's kind of beyond his goals and assists, right? That I think those will come in time. I think, like, he does show enough and he's getting better and better every week. And he pops up occasionally. He's got a few goals and a couple of assists. So I think, but that, his work rate is something incredible. I think kind of every team needs one. Normally, that guy is sitting sort of in the six. We've had someone like Smallwood or someone in the past who's the grafter and the grinder who runs himself into the ground. But you got to have one. He surprisingly for one of the youngest players in the squad, he's a real leader, which is, I guess, like, interesting when you've got, guys like Lundstrom who have, what was he made his 500th career appearance, I think.
Sometimes,
against Stoke. So, like, you just, I think I think moments like this really put in perspective, like, I guess, someone's value to a football team and on a football pitch beyond the measurable metrics of goals and assists and XG.
And that's where I struggle a little bit, because I have been very critical of guys like Ndala and Destan. And for me, Destan, like, 2 goals in 2 appearances was really good from him. My concern with someone like Destan, and I look at how this game started, where unless it's a game that we're dominant in possession and dominant in chance creation, I just don't know if he does enough off the ball to really add that value to the team. And I know people will say, well, it's sort of a chicken and the egg. Like, you can't know if you're going to have that control of the game until it starts, sort of thing. Like, you look at QPR and, like, we looked quite dominant and he got his goal, and so that was fine. Against Stoke, we didn't have as much control of the game, and therefore him, JB, and Dara were a bit more anonymous for that first half. You just need, that's where I almost feel like, and I said it before the game, so it wasn't said with any hindsight, but the decision to go Ndala over Joseph, to me, was the bigger one, where I look at just don't know if Ndala is the right option in these sorts of games. I think if you're playing like an Oxford or like no disrespect to those sides, but or a Norwich or someone like that, where we're going to dominate chances, we're going to dominate the ball a lot more. I think that's fine to play an Ndala, but when you're playing in a more physical game like this, and probably it's going to be the same against Middlesbrough, I don't know if you're throwing like a, what is he, 19, 20 years old, flashy winger, like he's got the skills. I just think his ball retention sometimes leaves a bit to be desired, and I don't know if his ability to close down his opposition man is as effective as a Joseph. And I think, like you said there, you can make your criticisms of Joseph as much as you want. And look, we didn't touch on it. Like he had a really good chance at 0-0 against Ipswich, gets played in. And I thought that it was deflected wide, and actually it was just a really poorly taken shot. And you go, Joseph still has those moments. So absolutely there's criticisms there for him, which are valid. But I think when you look at the state of the game when he's on the field versus off the field, like he does make such a difference in terms of that pressure. And people kind of scoff at it and go, oh, okay, he presses, like you need to offer more than that. I'm like, the pressing that he does is just such an underrated aspect of his game. And I say that the fact that we talk about his pressing every week means it's not like it's underrated, it's not unacknowledged, but it's something where when he's not playing, you really notice like the missing element in the team. It's going to be really interesting. Like obviously we'll talk Middlesbrough in a second, and Miller and McBurney are coming back to fitness, whether you almost can get by without it, because with Miller, perhaps you've kind of got that attacking talent that means you don't necessarily need that pressing from the front. And then you have like a Lundstrom or someone can step in to do that job from midfield, like you were talking about with like a Smallwood sort. But yeah, for the time being, and as a squad player, as someone that you feel confident being able to throw on in a game, I think Joseph is definitely a good option.
Yeah, I think in the coming weeks, as McBurney sort of returns to that number 9 spot, that like I think he was doing, like early in the season, he was the guy doing a lot of that work. He was pressing a lot and making himself known and involving himself. I guess in the way when like you're criticizing Destan for not sort of finding a ways to get himself involved in the game, that McBurney still does. So I think obviously when he works his way back in, I think that'll make a big difference. And that sort of allows that balance where when you've got McBurney on doing that work, then if you do have Miller or Ndala or someone that's a bit flashier doing a little bit less of that grafting work, then it's not as noticeable. But I think we kind of found we had a bit of a lazy sort of not lazy is not maybe a bit too harsh a word, but we had a sort of a front line that was
lightweight,
less lightweight, less enthused to press so high, or I don't know how to put it, but but I think overall the Stoke game, I think the result to go there, to have such a poor first half, and then to have that response in the second half, to nab that right in the final moments of the game, clutch finish from Gelhardt, which takes him to something crazy. It's like 9 goal involvements in his 10 games or something like that. Like it's 7 goals and 2 assists or something, which is it was just crazy to look at those figures.
Most significant element of that being as well that those 9 games or 8 games with McBurney out, I think there was a lot of fear that if McBurney went out of that side, that we would sort of goals would dry up, we'd tumble down the table, and Gelhardt has well and truly stood up. Interesting when you sort of think about it in that kind of context, that he hadn't actually done much to start the season in that sense. Like he hadn't scored too many goals. So it's almost a really enticing prospect now if we get McBurney back, Balumi on the right, Miller on the left, Gelhardt in behind. That's like a really frightening front four potentially in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, I think everyone's coming back kind of at the right time, really, because this week always is a really busy time of year, so we kind of need all bodies available to sort of rotate and to manage all those sort of returns. But I think, like this is Gelhardt's best, period of football in his career. Yeah. He's in career best form, and I know we've touched on it, I think previously in other versions of the podcast or other episodes, but just like you go, wonder what that conversation looks like come January. Like it's
Yeah.
literally around the corner, and you go, like obviously I know we can't spend any money right now, but like
I think,
there has to be some
yeah.
negotiations or some conversations between us and Leeds about Gelhart's future, because I think I just can't see how you could. He's going to play such an important role this season, and he's at the
And he
right
loves it here.
age and the right, yeah, and he loves it here. Like all of the, like it's like we have all of our ducks in a row,
Mm.
and I'm so I'm actually very afraid that we're somehow gonna like not make it happen, because it would be like
Yeah.
a classic Hull City thing to do. But
It would, but I would say I feel like, unlike under the Allams, for example, we would have stuffed ourselves. We would have like tried to lowball leads,
mm,
and we would have sort of worked our way out of the deal. Whereas under Ajun, I'm at least confident that if we don't get Gelhardt, it's not through a lack of trying, and that we will do everything we
mm,
can to make a deal work. Um, Interestingly, I mean, I've seen people sort of say, "Oh, like we could announce something on the 1st of February." Because by that point, technically the punishment has elapsed. I do wonder, because we've got that third window as like a what would you call it, like a suspended sentence, that if
mm,
something happened between February and June, they could still implement that. I don't know if we technically can announce anything, but I would
mm,
imagine surely there's some sort of, maybe it's a verbal conversation, so there's nothing in writing, but maybe there's got to be some sort of conversation between Ajun and the Leeds owners to say, I think they valued him at like 8 million last summer. You go, okay, he's got a year less left on his deal, but he's done a whole lot better. So maybe it's around that sort of 6 to 7 million with add-ons. That's probably not out of that's not out of the realm of possibility for us. When you think like from a PSR perspective, we just spent
mm,
nothing for all of this year. So we've probably got
mm,
some PSR headroom. Surely you make something happen. Maybe you say it's, say, at 5 million plus add-ons, or you say it's whatever it would be. But yeah, surely there's some
mm,
sort of verbal conversation. And we just make it really clear that we want to make it work, because it sounds as if he's really keen to come as well. So
mm,
the only risk would be a Premier League club comes in for him, or like a
mm,
Wolves or someone getting relegated try to come in for
yeah.
him. But yeah, you'd hope that we can make something happen. Last thing on the game. So obviously, so first half, you talked about it with the first goal for us, where on another day the ref blows for offside. Got denied a pretty clear penalty in the first half. So you can argue, as much as yes, it was still a valid call in the second half for the Ajayi goal, it can also still be seen as sort of like balancing out the fact that we didn't get that clear
Mm,
penalty first half. I think Jakirovic has talked about the fact he's been a bit annoyed that we haven't had more penalty decisions go our way. Like, I
mm,
feel like there's got to be a few where like Gelhardt gets played through on goal and gets taken
mm,
out, where you go 50-50, but it always seems to be 50-50 against us.
mm,
So yeah, a bit fortunate unfortunate not to get the penalty, but fortunate in the
mm.
end.
Yeah, I think I'd almost forgotten about that.
Mm.
Crooks threw on goal, and yeah, we have been on the wrong side of a few of those calls. It would have been interesting to see, had that penalty been given, what the rest of that first half would look like. Whether we just shrunk back into the shell that we've been playing in, or whether that really like pushed us on to sort of improve and then maybe run away with the game a little bit more. But obviously didn't happen. But I
Panned out
think
okay in the end, at least. Yeah.
yeah, it's all worked out in the end. I will say that I really felt like I think the penalty decision is just one example where the ref really didn't have control, didn't have a
Mm.
really good game. Like the fact that most of the yellow cards were handed out after the final whistle, um, like was just wild.
Well,
I
we can
just
talk about
think,
that if you want. That incident at full time. I'm going to file it under things that you officially you don't want to see. It's ugly scenes, but secretly like it was funny. I saw a comment about, like, from the picture that we've used for the episode of the really famous picture now with Coyle, Joseph, Crooks, and who was it's Gelhardt, I think, are the four players in the photo. And someone I think had said, "Oh, like this team has such a backbone now. You wouldn't have seen this from the players last season." And you go, "Oh, all four of those players were here last season." Like I think if anything, they've been given a bit more license by Jurkovic to stand up for each other. And as much as you don't like to see the handbags and all that carry on, like it is nice seeing the players so united and passionate for the club and for the shirt, really.
Yeah, look, I think I'm sort of the same as you, and I think there's two elements to this. One, I think awesome that these guys are very clearly a unit, and it's sort of to an extent like one in all in. Like if someone's getting given a hard time, the other players are there. They're going to have their back, and they're going to back them up. I guess the other side of it is like I think it's a valid point that was made that like Lundstrom in the heat of the moment, like the full time whistle goes, he shushes the Stoke crowd. But I just don't know. Like you after that moment, there's no reason for all of our players to still be there. Like they should have just we had 1,100 traveling fans or whatever it was. Like they should just be going over there. And I think if everyone is like that all only blew up because of one idiot from the crowd who tried to get on the pitch anyway. Like if that hadn't happened, then I don't think the Stoke players aren't going to be happy that much. I don't think it blows up as much as it does if random Stoke fan doesn't take great offense to this from I'm not anyway. There's so many elements that just don't make I'm like, why are you getting that upset about this?
I will say
because I think it's different too, because I remember there was it like Vardy who ran like the length of the field to celebrate in front of the other team or something?
Maybe
sometime in the last few years. That's his level of shithousery, but it's not really it's not like it was that where you go, okay, you've really gone out of your way to antagonize the other fans. Like we were defending the ball, that was the end we were defending. Like the game finished, we were right there, and I just think it's kind of one of the heat of the moment. Everyone just sort of got a bit probably overreacted to the situation, but I think we just need to get out of there because I think it's like twice. So we got the £25,000 fine for the
Birmingham
game,
game,
and there'll be another one of those for this, I'm sure. So in the coming weeks, another fine.
I definitely say that, but I do really emphasize with your first point on one in all in the sense that if you want to achieve anything as a club, I think you need that unity in the dressing room. And I think it's really good that the players can look around at each other and have that confidence in each other. And look, it's not just this sort of stuff where you go it's not necessarily needed. I think it's also the stuff like you referenced, Joseph pressing on the goalkeeper in the 93rd minute. It's that sort of thing as well. It's actions on the field that I think are showing that this club the team is really unified at the moment. And you always hear from any team that gets promoted how closely knit the dressing room needs to be, and we've perhaps not had the best of dressing rooms over the years, with a lot of the turnover, a lot of the under Volta, perhaps the way that he was treating some of the players. So I think if nothing else, I think it shows at the moment that and you sort of laugh at it a bit with Lundstrom, but it is nice having those sorts of personalities in the club. Like Lundstrom and McBurney in particular seem like the sorts of characters that would be so much fun around the dressing room, and they have that character and they have that energy level that I think is a bit infectious. And I think, like you said, even Joseph coming on the field and running at the opposition, it sort of lifts the other players to come along with them. So I think it's all sort of combining. I think, you don't want to get too ahead of yourself. You don't want to set too high an expectation this season. I don't think I have any realistic aims of promotion, but I think a top 6 sort of finish would just be such a good springboard for this team to go on to bigger things next season if that was to be the case. So I think all signs are pointing to a really, really strong season for us, which I think, you even see before this Stoke game, I think a lot of people were starting to say, oh, here comes the slide, City have had that good run of results, but now they're going to fall down the table. And if we'd lost to Stoke, I think it could have been a valid point. But the way we've recovered, and we're going to talk about Middlesbrough in a second, but starting to get players back as well, I think it's actually a perfectly timed sort of situation for us to now really tackle that Christmas period.
Yeah, look, I don't really. There's not much else to say. I think you've sort of nailed it. It was a good response, and now sort of on to the next one. I think I'll give you my votes, and I suppose. So I went 3 to Gelhardt because I just think all around he had a pretty good game, but I think just the clutch finish. I think to ice it in the dying minutes, to bag some 3 points is always good. I got 2 points to Bellumi, point for each assist, I suppose. I think he probably his best sort of half since his return from his first injury, and 1 point to Ajayi for his first goal. So
nice shout. And I think we've got 5 different players in our votes, because I went Bellumi for the 3 votes for the 2 assists, and I thought a really strong performance from him. Reminded me why he was easily my favorite player under in that sort of Volta era of a very disjointed squad. I think Logan had sort of said last season it was a real struggle to identify with the team because there'd been so much turnover, and I think Bellumi was one that I sort of clung on to as a real bright spot in that side, and I think he's now starting to, if he can continue on that form that he showed against Stoke, he's starting to get back to that. I gave 2 votes to Egan, actually, because I think that was one of his best games in the City shirt. And actually, I think I saw somewhere that we're looking to offer him a new deal, which I think is richly deserved. And you sort of forget, he was such an under-the-radar deadline day signing in January, where you go, it was almost like an afterthought, where you thought, okay, yeah, he's just coming in as a bit of depth. But he's played a whole lot more than I expected. He's been really robust as well. I thought, coming off the back of, I think he'd had an Achilles injury or something, I was like, don't know how he's going to hold up, but he's been excellent for us. And I went 1 vote for Lundstrom, actually, because I thought, again, on his return from injury, sort of showing us what we'd been missing with his absence, where his ability to break up the play in defensive midfield, spray some passes as well. It's a really valuable set of attributes that he's got, and a really important key member of the 11. So I think it highlights what a good performance it was in the end, that we actually essentially came out with 5 different players from good performances in just that second half, because that first half wasn't too good. But we'll finish off with Middlesbrough. So Middlesbrough, Saturday morning, 7 a.m. Australian time on beIN Sports here, so not on Tigers Plus. 2 games in a row against teams placed in the top 2, placed in second place, is another tough test at home this time. Hellberg in charge for them. He was appointed after Rob Edwards left for Wolves, won his first game in charge against Derby, but I think it was in the very last minute of that game. I think they've only got 2 wins in their last 6 or 7 games, or maybe even 8 games, I think. So deceptive form in terms of, they sit second in the table, but they're not actually in the best of form from that perspective. Alfie Jones likely in the starting 11 against us as well, to add a little bit of spice from that perspective. But how do you feel heading into this one? I actually feel relatively confident, I say, question mark.
Look, I think the second half of the Stoke game was so good that I actually do feel reasonably confident. I think when I look at, I think it's 4 games left before Christmas, and they're all going to be tough games. Bar the cliche that every game in the championship is a tough game. You've got currently second Middlesbrough, currently third Millwall, and then Wrexham, who I think is just below
13
us,
undefeated,
and then West Brom, who is also just below us. So 4 really tough teams, games coming into Christmas. But I really think that there's probably 6 or 7 points. I think would that would be a reasonable sort of return. Anything less than that, I think, is probably troubling. I think because that those gaps will start to sort of open up between those places. And if we want to sort of try and stay in touching distance, we need sort of those points. But I think, like, I think this is a game that is very winnable because I'm not sure what the change in, if there's been a big change in style for like playing style for Middlesbrough, but I think like they come to play football, and I think teams that want to come and play football, I think that kind of really works in our favor if we can start playing and disrupt their rhythm and and get going. Then I think with someone like Lundstrom, hopefully he gets to start and to break up the play, and then like him and Crooks I think are so good at that of breaking things up and turning the game around and moving in the other direction. That I'm pretty confident. I can't see us keeping a clean sheet. That's my only thing. I feel like it's gonna be a pretty big one. I feel like it could be like a 3-2 or something like. But I feel like we can get away. We can get the job done.
Yeah, I don't know what the prognosis is for Hughes' potential injury. I'd probably keep the back four the same regardless, just because I thought they looked pretty settled. We're losing Ajayi soon to AFCON.
Yeah, I was like, I may as well keep Ajayi as long as we can.
Use him as much as we can.
As many games out as we can.
Well, did you see? Apparently, we're trying to work with Nigeria to get him to the Middle game. Yeah. Makes sense. Like they're saying, like he could just fly out from London after the Mill game. I'm like, it's basically on his way to the airport, just pop into the Mill, play a game, and head off. But but I'd probably keep that back for the same. Yeah, Lundstrom maybe from the start next to, I guess you'd probably say Slater. Interesting decision though. I guess you'd say if you're bringing Balumi potentially in from the start, Gelhardt maybe central, Slater maybe drops to the bench, and then you'd have Crooks, Lundstrom and Gelhardt in that midfield. Or if Crooks, I don't know. Like that balance of that midfield is a bit of a trickier one. Maybe Crooks drops to the bench and you go Slater and Lundstrom with Gelhardt up top, and then Balumi, Joseph on the wings with Destan up top. I like it. Yeah, not too sure. We're starting to get players back, and you're actually having to like it's. We've actually got these options now.
Yeah, I think.
I don't know if I'd risk Balumi from the start. To be honest, I'd probably put Gelhardt on the wing, Balumi and Miller to pretend Balumi on it, sort of 50-60 minutes, Miller on it, sort of 60 to 70 minutes, maybe.
Yeah, maybe like Joseph, Destin, Gelhardt along the top, Crooks in behind, and then I don't know. I mean, Slater's been really good. And he probably deserves to keep his spot. But I was like there was a period where it was Hadjiemovic and Lundstrom playing together, and it was really, really effective. So don't know. You're right. It's tricky. I mean, it's a good problem to have. Like I think when you've got there's been times over the last couple of seasons where it's been like, well, this is the first 11, and there's no reason to change it because no one on the bench is better than what we've got in that first 11, but I don't really see that's the case at the moment. You can make a case for someone like Amir coming in, but it's a tough call because you go, well, Slater, Crooks, Lundstrom, like all of those guys deserve to start as much as any other. I'd say probably JB's the weakest of the midfielders at the moment. But I think he's a great option off the. He's been great off the bench a few times. Like he's had some moments, but I just think he doesn't have the sort of, I guess, like the consistency across a 90 or 70 minutes or whatever that some of the others sort of are putting in.
I wonder if we try and do what I presume we were trying to do against Ipswich, which is sort of contain them until sort of 50, 60 minutes, and then you throw on like a Balumi, a McBurney, and you almost make it a game of a 30-minute game where you go, okay, get to 0-0 at 60 minutes, put these guys on when they're fresh, so they're not sort of running out from the start, and try and snatch something at the end. Could be the way we play it. I'd probably be really hesitant to throw Balumi from the start because I'm just like, you don't want to put him out again with another.
You're just tempting me. I can't. I'm just imagining it like bloody 8:30 in the morning or something, and it's like Miller, McBurney, Balumi, triple sub on, and you just get
Yeah, yeah,
like
and
like
Galhart just
something's
shoots
gonna
about
happen.
10, and you go, geez, but basically we'd be playing like a 4-2-4. It'd just be like such an insanely attacking setup. Yeah, look, I think I probably agree. Like I see goals in this one. Maybe we edge it 2-1. But I think, look, at the end of the day, like even if we were to lose this game against Borough, I think we're set up quite well. Like you said, it's a tough run to Christmas, but it's also a really good set of fixtures to attack. Where I think I look at Millwall, I look at West Brom, I look at Wrexham, and I don't think any of those teams particularly, famous last words, don't particularly scare me. Where I go, it's actually three sides that have been in reasonable form, but are sides that we can sort of get at and get results against, particularly with the players we're getting back from injuries, where because their sides around us in the table, it actually really sets us up well if we can take the points off them and jump up the table. So even if we were to slide down a bit against Borough, it's an easier way to claw results back. It's not like we're playing, I don't know, Chef Wednesday and you go, well, of course it's 3 points, but then the teams around us are winning as well, and so it doesn't help us that much.
Yeah, I think you're right. It's a pretty interesting time of the season, and it's just a interesting way that the fixtures have sort of worked out, that we've got 4 games against 4 teams that are all like pretty tight and in positions really, and points sort of in the table. Because even like Borough, like in second, I think they're only 5 points ahead of us.
Yeah.
Like
Well, I was going to say,
tight.
Interesting the way the fixtures are falling. We've just played Stoke. We're about to play Borough, and then in like 3 weeks' time, we play Borough again, and then we play Stoke again. Like it's it'd be nice to have a bit of variety in the fixtures, but I guess that's just the way they've fallen.
Well, if we beat Borough, then we can just assume that that's 2 easy wins in another few weeks as well. So
absolutely right. No, well, look, we'll leave things there. So thanks for joining me for this one, Dan.
Yeah, no worries, mate.
And thanks everyone for listening in. We'll be back next week to talk Middlesbrough and look ahead to the Wrexham and the Wrexham and Millwall games, I should say. But until then,